أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله. أما بعد, we thank the Almighty Allah for giving us an opportunity to be here. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Whosoever the Almighty Allah guides is really guided, and anybody who goes astray has nobody to blame but themselves. Today is a Tuesday, the 13th day of Ramadan, 1444 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which corresponds, I believe, with the 4th day of April 2023. Alhamdulillah, yesterday we read Surah An-Nas, where we spoke about, the potency of seeking refuge from the Almighty Allah against the evils that are both inside and outside. When we speak about the evils that are both inside and outside, we're speaking about the first evil, which is inside, is the whisper of shaitan into our ears. That's, evil suggestion from shaitan, what we call al-waswas. We spoke about it, and shaitan has proven himself as an enemy for the human race since the time that the Almighty Allah, preferred Adam over him. He made a promise, la ahtanikanna dhurriyatahu illa qalil. I'm going to destroy the whole family of Adam except only a few of them. So we seek refuge from the Almighty Allah against this evil of shaitan, the evil suggestion and the whisper of shaitan is very, very important. And then the other one, which is in Surah Al-Falaq, which happens to actually from external, where you have jealous people, you have people who want to, just destroy you, using evil and magic and stuff like that. Today we're going to go to arguably one of the most famous surah in the Quran, where almost every Muslim knows it, because it is the cornerstone of Islam. It is the test stone for Tawheed and Aqidah. Shaykh, can you give us the verse?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ.
As usual, we normally look at the names of the surah, that some surahs have multiple names. So this surah, as we all know, can also be called Surah Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad, as we heard. There are a lot of hadith concerning that. The hadith of Abi Darda, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sahih Muslim, where he said, أَيَعْجَزُ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَقْرَأَ فِي لَيْلَةٍ ثُلُثَ الْقُرْآنِ? Is one of you unable to read in one night 1/3 of the Quran? The Prophet asking the Sahaba, do you think it's difficult for you to read 1/3 of the Quran in one night? قالوا وكيف يقرأ ثلث القرآن أو كيف يقرأ ثلث القرآن? How can we read 1/3 of the Quran in one night? قال قل هو الله أحد تعدل ثلث القرآن. That قل هو الله أحد is like 1/3 of the Quran. We'll come and explain what the scholars mean, what the scholars said it means when you say قل هو الله is 1/3 of the Quran. If you divide the Quran into 3, قل هو الله takes 1. But this is only one surah in the Quran, which has about 4 verses. In some narrations it has 5 verses. So how? We also have the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where he said the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, or he reads in raka'atayn al-fajr, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reads, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ in raka'atayn al-fajr. So in these two hadith, it's very clear that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam called the surah Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad. So this is one of the names of the surah. There's another name of the surah called Surah Al-Ikhlas that you already know. Imam al-Tirmidhi, in his Jamia gives it that name, Surah Al-Ikhlas. And if you find in the Quran and a lot of tafsir books, they call it Surah Al-Ikhlas. And the meaning of Ikhlas is sincerity. Doing something for the sake of the Almighty Allah. And if you look at the surah is speaking about who Allah is. So the surah deserves to be called the surah of sincerity, because as we said in our past classes, that for your deeds to be accepted in Islam, you must be sincere with the Almighty Allah. You do it for the Almighty Allah and the Almighty Allah alone. In Islam, that is the standard for measuring who a Muslim is, which is your relationship with the Almighty Allah. Yesterday, I forgot to say something when I was speaking about the verse that the Almighty Allah was speaking to Adam and Hawa. And the problem that the feminist movement have is that they've made man the standard of measurement. So you realize that women today, or some of them, whatever a man can do, a woman can do and do it better. If you can wear pants, I can wear pants. If you can drive a tractor, I can drive a tractor. If you can walk bare-chested, I want to walk bare-chested. If you can do this, I can do that. That is the wrong motivation. They've taken God out of the equation and put man there. So women are now being forced to live like men and act like men and behave like men, which is not possible because you are a woman. But because this radical feminist movement have taken Allah out of the equation, making man the standard, man has become the standard for them. So definitely they want to act and look like men. I say this, no matter how iron pumping a woman does, no matter how much press-ups she does, in the heat of battle, it's men who stand. So women have a peculiar characteristics and anatomy. And men have what? A characteristic and anatomy. The moment you conflict the two, you have problems. And now we have this movement of transgenderism where a man will get up and say he's a woman, and a woman wants to say she's a man, and then we've opened the door for just anything. So anything is just being pushed through the door. And that has become a problem. Now, I think, was it in Scotland or in England, a male swimming competition. If he goes to swim with the men, he comes number 400 and something. So now he says he's a woman. And then he has joined the female, swimming. And before the even referee whistles, he has gone and he's come back. He's finished. He's broken all forms of record. Because it's a fallacy. Men are different. Women are different. So if you take out the God factor out of our lives, we just live anyhow without any source of reference. And that has been what? That has been a problem. So Surah Al-Ikhlas is the surah of what? Of sincerity with Almighty Allah. These are names that we get directly from hadith. But then some of the scholars look at the surah and then they look at the message of the surah and then they give it a name. For example, Imam al-Razi, al-Alusi, al-Zamakhshari, al-Sakhawi, al-Suyuti, al-Fayruz Abadi, al-Biqai, all these scholars have also given the name al-Asas. And al-Asas means the foundation. And the reason why they gave the surah the name is because the surah is speaking about the foundation of the deen. And the foundation of the religion is who? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the description of Allah and then the rights that Allah demands from us is explicitly explained in the surah. So they call it the surah of what? Of the foundation, Surah Al-Asas. It is also called Surah Al-Tawheed. In some, masahif, in some, manuscripts of the Quran, it is written Surah Al-Tawheed. And it's the same group of scholars, how we're speaking, Al-Razi and Alusi, and even Ibn al-Arabi, fi Ahkam al-Quran, name it the Surah Tawheed. And we all know the meaning of Tawheed. Tawheed is the oneness of the Almighty Allah, is the monotheism, that Allah is the only one who deserves to be worshipped. And Surah Al-Qul Huwallahu Ahad, explains that to us. When we come to, discuss the surah in some few minutes, we will see that. Some of them name them Al-Muqashqashatu. This is a tongue twister. And Al-Muqashqashatu, which also Surah Al-Kafirun, they call them Al-Muqashqashatani. That is Al-Mubarri'atani min ash-shirk. These two surahs, when you work with them, when you read them, they are like you are absolving yourself from shirk. You are what? You are distancing yourself from associating partners with Almighty Allah. So for example, if Shaykh read Surah Qul al-Kafirun for us.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
نعم.
قل يا أيها الكافرون
نعم.
لا أعبد ما تعبدون
نعم.
ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد
نعم.
لكم دينكم ولي دين.
Inshallah, in the subsequent days we will reach the surah and then we explain it. But the reason why I said the Sheikh to read it for us so that we just have a brief understanding of what Surah Al-Kafirun is. The kuffar came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, Muhammad, okay, we've heard you. What we are going to do is we worship each other 50-50. You see, we will come and worship your Lord today, and then next time you come and worship our God. And Almighty Allah revealed the verse, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, say, O kuffar, لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ, I'm not going to worship what you worship. وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, you too, you are not agreeing to come and worship what I worship. وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدْتُمْ, I'm also going to reiterate to you, I'm not going to worship what you are worshiping. وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, you are also not going to worship what I'm going to worship. So, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينٍ. Let's all stay in our lane. So this surah explains to us what? Distancing yourself from worshipping anybody apart from the Almighty Allah. So it's also a name of the surah, that the surah is what? Distancing yourself from shirk and association partners with the Almighty Allah. Another name of the surah is Surah As-Samad. And Al-Razi and Alusi in their tafsir with Baqa'i fi Nuzum also speaks about it, that the surah is Surah As-Samad. When we say As-Samad, we'll come and explain what the meaning of As-Samad is, because As-Samad has different meanings and all of them are applicable. But then what it means is that the eternal, the one that we all look up to in our time of needs. And then other names that the scholars have given, At-Tafreed, At-Tajreed, Al-Najah, Al-Wilaya, Al-Nisba, Al-Ma'rifa, Al-Jamal, Al-Mani'a, Al-Munaffira, Al-Bara'a, Al-Mudhakkira, Al-Nur, Al-Aman. These are all names that the scholars have known. They looked at the surah and then the message of the surah, and then they give the surah the name. So these are Asma Ijtihadiyya. These are names that the scholars, out of their own, research, their own understanding, they give it. But then the two names that we mentioned before, they are Asma Tawqifiyya. These are names that we have from what? From source. Al-Ikhlas and Qul Huwallahu Ahad. These two names are from source. But the rest of the names that we spoke about, Al-Asas, the foundation, At-Tawheed, monotheism, Al-Muqashqasha, the one that distances us from, shirk, As-Samad. These are names that the scholars have tried out of their own understanding of the surah to give the surah that name. Now the surah has some significance. Fada'il surah. Aisha radiallahu anha says the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, anytime he's going to sleep, don't forget we've mentioned this hadith for the past 3 days, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, anytime he's going to sleep, he put his two hands together like this, and then he reads Qul Huwallahu 3 times, Birabbil Falak 3 times, and Birabbil Nas 3 times, and then he blows it into his hands, and then he wipes his whole body with. So if you realize the 3 surahs so far for the past 3 days, they are in tandem, and then they move together in as if they have the same message that they give. And let's not forget, we also said that these 3 surahs, You read them in the morning and then in the evening. And in the morning, especially after Salat al-Fajr, you read Qul Huwallahu 3 times, Birabbil Falak 3 times, and Birabbil Nas 3 times. And then after Maghrib, you do it the same. But the rest of the 3 Salah, like Zuhur and Asr and Isha, you read them 1 time each. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, in a hadith narrated by Imam al-Bukhari, says, أن رجلا سمع رجلا يقرأ قل هو الله أحد يرددها, that a man heard another man reading قل هو الله أحد repeatedly. فلما أصبح, when it was morning, it was as if it was in the night, and then he heard him. فلما أصبح, when it was morning, جاء إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فذكر ذلك له. And then he told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that last night I heard so and so reading Qul Huwa Allahu a lot of times in the night. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, والذي نفسي بيده إنها لتعدل ثلث القرآن, that I swear by the one that my life is in his hands, that Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad is like 1/3 of the Quran. As I said earlier, we'll come and explain what it means by 1/3 of the Quran. Part of the virtue of the surah is also that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates a hadith that is found in Sahih Muslim, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in raka'atayn al-fajr, the 2 units of salah before fajr, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reads Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun and Qul huwa Allahu ahad in them. And we all know the hadith where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, raka'atayn al-fajr afdal min ad-dunya wa ma fiha. خير من الدنيا وما فيها, that raka'atayn al-fajr is better than what is in the dunya altogether. Just those 2 units of rak'ah. May Almighty Allah safeguard us.
Amen.
There is also a hadith found in Bukhari from Anas bin Malik, where he says, كان رجل من الأنصار يؤمهم في مسجد قباء, that a man from the people of Medina, al-Ansar, these are the helpers. We have al-Muhajirun, those who migrated, the immigrants to Medina. We have al-Ansar, the people who are what? Natives of Medina, who are the helpers. So a man amongst them who was leading them prayer in Masjid Quba. And Masjid Quba is from the Masjid of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about 10 minutes drive. 10 minutes drive, I believe. 10 minutes drive. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in Hijrah, he built Masjid Quba before he went to the city of Medina to build his masjid. So Masjid Quba is very, very important. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered us to visit the masjid and pray at least 2 units of rak'ah in there. So this imam of this masjid, during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning the Prophet had a masjid in Medina, and then there was this Masjid Quba where there was also an imam there leading the people prayer. وكان كلما افتتح سورة يقرأ بها لهم في الصلاة مما يقرأ به افتتح بقل هو الله أحد. Anytime he's going to lead them in salah, he always reads قل هو الله first before he reads any surah in the salah, in the same rak'ah. So he reads وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ آمين قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. And then he brings whatever surah he wants to bring before he goes to ruku. حتى يفرغ منها, until he will read the whole of قل هو الله, ثم يقرأ سورة أخرى معها, then he will read another surah with قل هو الله in the same word, in the same rak'ah. وكان يصنع ذلك في كل ركعة, and then he does this in every rak'ah. فكلمه أصحابه فقالوا, and then the people who were in the masjid, sometimes the congregation can advise the imam, can speak to the imam concerning an issue. Maybe the imam is in the front. It's not everything that he's aware of in the masjid, because we are all together. You might see something, imam, there's a short of toilet paper, or whether we need toilet paper, we need soap, something like this. As you normally do, come into the office and say, imam, there's something like this. So the people were like, imam, we are confused. In every surah, in every rak'ah, you read Qul Huwa Allahu, and then you read another surah. We are confused. Either you read only Qul Huwa Allahu and forget the other surahs, or you forget Qul Huwa Allahu and then you read what? You read the other surah. It's like they are giving him an ultimatum. فَقَالَ مَا أَنَا بِتَارِكَهَا, I'm not going to leave it. I'm not going to stop reading Qul Huwa Allahu in my salah. إِنْ أَحْبَبْتُمْ أَنْ أَؤُمُّكُمْ بِذَلِكَ, if you want me to be your imam, I'll do. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read my Qul Huwallahu all the time, and after it, I'm going to bring another surah. وَإِن كَرِهْتُمْ تَرَكْتُكُمْ. If you say no, I leave the job for you. You find another imam who is going to what? Who is going to lead the prayer. وَكَانُوا يَرَوْنَ أَنَّهُ مِنْ أَفْضَلِهِمْ. And then they realize that this imam is the best imam they can ever have. So if they argue with him and then he says he's no longer going to continue the job, it's going to be very difficult replacing him. وَكَرُهُ أَنْ يَأُمَّهُمْ غَيْرُهُ. And then they dislike that someone else will come and what? Be their imam. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهُمُ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ أَخْبَرُوهُ الْخَبَرِ. One day the Prophet Muhammad came visiting. He came to the masjid to visit them and he said, Ya Rasulullah, we have a concern with our imam. This is what the imam has been doing. فَقَالَ يَا فُلَانِ. And the Prophet asked him, O imam, مَا يَمْنَعُكَ أَن تَفْعَلَ مَا يَأْمُرُكَ بِهِ أَصْحَابُكَ. What prevents you from, doing what your people want you to do for them? That either you read only Qul Huwallah, or you forget Qul Huwallah and then you read the other surah. وَمَا يَحْمِلُكَ عَلَى لُزُومِ هَذِهِ السُّورَةِ فِي كُلِّ رَكَعَةٍ. And why do you always maintain this surah in every rak'ah? فَقَالَ إِنِّي أُحِبُّهَا. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I just love the surah. I love the surah. فَقَالَ. And the Prophet said, حُبُّكَ إِيَّاهَا أَدْخَلَكَ الْجَنَّةِ. Your love for the surah has been a reason for you to enter Jannah. So the love of Qul Huwallah and reading it often is what is one of the pathways of getting into Jannah. This is one of the virtues of what? Of the surah. Aisha radiallahu anha also narrates a hadith for us. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعث رجلا على سرية. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent a scouting party, and then he gave them a leader. He appointed a leader. وكان يقرأ لأصحابه في صلاتهم. Anytime he is praying, he is leading them in prayer. فَيَخْتُمْ بِقُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ. Whatever surah he will read, he will finish it with قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ. The first hadith, he brings قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ first, and then he brings another surah. But in this hadith, this other companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whatever surah he is going to read, he will make sure after reading it, he will read قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ. فَلَمَّا رَجَعُوا ذَكَرُوا ذَلِكَ لِلنَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. When they came back from the scouting party that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent to them, they told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, this is what this leader has been doing. فَقَالَ. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, سَلُوهُ لِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ يَصْنَعَ ذَلِكَ. Why is he doing that? Ask him. فَقَالَ لِأَنَّهَا صِفَةُ الرَّحْمَنِ. لِأَنَّهَا صِفَةُ الرَّحْمَنِ. Because she is a description of who Allah is. وَأَنَا أُحِبُّ أَنْ أَقْرَأَ بِهَا. And I love to read this description of who Allah is. فَقَالَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ أَخْبِرُوهُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّهُ. Give him glad tidings that the Almighty Allah loves him. So reading Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad is what? Is a means towards gaining the love of who? Of the Almighty Allah. Because this surah is a surah that explains to us who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. What are the virtues of the Almighty Allah? What are the descriptions of the Almighty Allah? What are the characteristics of the Almighty Allah? And then it makes the Almighty Allah unique and peculiar from His creations. When you come and explain, you understand that. There is a hadith of Mu'adh ibn Abdullah ibn Khabib and Abihi qala. He said, خرجنا في ليلة مطيرة or مطيرة. We came out in a night that was what? A very, very rainy night. It was raining. وَظُلْمَةٌ شَدِيدًا. And then it was a dark night. Very, very dark. نَطْلُبُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم يُصَلِّي لَنَا. We were looking for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so that he will lead us in prayer. A night, rainy night, deep darkness of the night, looking for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to pray with them. قال فأدركته. And I found him. فقال. And he told me, قل فلم أقل شيئا. He told me, say. And I didn't say anything. ثم قال قل. He told me, hey, say. فلم أقل شيئا. I didn't say anything. قال قل. He said, say. Repeat after me. فقلت ما أقول. What will I say, يا رسول الله? قال قل هو الله أحد. Say قل هو الله أحد. وَالْمُعَوِّذَتَيْنِ, and the two surahs that we spoke about yesterday and day before yesterday, حِينَ تُمْسِي وَحِينَ تُصْبِحْ ثَلَاثُ مَرَّاتٍ تَكْفِيكَ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. You do these three surah, as we said earlier on, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ 3 times, بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ 3 times, and بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ 3 times. تَكْفِيكَ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. It is enough for you against any evil. The final one, and this is the biggest one, the biggest goodie in Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad. And Mu'adh ibn Anas al-Juhani, Sahib al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Man qara'a Qul Huwallahu Ahad hatta yakhtumuha 10 marrat. Anybody who reads Qul Huwallahu 10 times in a day, Bana Allahu lahu qasran fil Jannah. The Almighty Allah will build a palace for you in Jannah. فقال عمر بن الخطاب, and Umar ibn al-Khattab said, إذن أستكثر يا رسول الله. Ya Rasulullah, if I read only Qul Huwallahu 10 times, I get one castle in Jannah. Now I must read it a lot of times then if I want more castles. And the Prophet Muhammad said, Allahu akthar wa atyab. The Almighty Allah will increase you more and He will give you better. So if you want to have castles in Jannah, make Qul Huwallahu your what? Your toothpaste, and then your what? Your toothbrush all the time. Reach them. What's the reason behind the revelation of Qul Huwallahu Ahad? Ubay ibn Ka'b said, the mushrikeen came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they said, Insab lana rabbuk. And nasbu here means, the kuffar in Mecca, they had a tradition that who are you? What is your lineage? That's how they determine who you are. Oh, this is my father, the son of this, the son of this, the son of this. So they came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, Insab lana rabbuk. Describe the lineage of your Lord for us. We want to know who your God is. فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. The Almighty Allah revealed the verse قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ for them to understand that their standards of measurement, their metrics of measurement is not the same with the Almighty Allah. It is not applicable to the Almighty Allah. It is not Allah, son of so, son of so, son of so. No, the Almighty Allah is beyond that. In the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, أن عامر بن الطفيل وأربد ابن ربيعة أتيا نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال عامر إلى ما تدعونا. They said, these two people came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they said, to what do you call us? They are asking the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to what do you call us? قال إلى الله. I'm calling you to Allah. قال صفه لنا. Okay, describe Allah to us. We want to know who Allah is. أمن ذهب هو. Is he made of gold? أمن فضة, or is he made of silver? أمن حديد, is he made from cast iron? أمن خشب, is he made from wood? فنزلت هذه السورة, and then Almighty Allah revealed this verse, letting them know who the Almighty Allah is. Now, let's go and explain the verse one after the other. So, Shaykh, let's قل هو الله أحد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
نعم.
قل هو الله أحد.
The Almighty Allah is giving the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the order. This surah and any other like it is a testament that the Quran is not a product of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the Almighty Allah is dictating the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Qul, tell them. Because if it's the work of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if it is the handiwork of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will go forward and say, Hu Allahu Ahad. He is Allah, the one and only. Because he is writing. If I'm writing a book, will I write myself that tell yourself to tell this? No. It doesn't work that way. Because the book is the book of the Almighty Allah. And the Almighty Allah is the one dictating the book to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He tells him, Qul, tell them. Same way we have Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq. We have Qul a'udhu bi rabbil nas. We have Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. We have Qul uhiya ilayya. We have all this Qul in the Quran. Which is what? It is someone telling the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam what? To give that message out. If it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's own message, he would have said, Ya ayyuhal kafirun, la a'budu ma ta'budun. But he says what? قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. So bringing the word قُل is very, very imperative, very, very important to what? To give out the message that this book is not the handiwork of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. He is Allah, the one and only. And the word Allah, I remember us discussing this some few weeks ago or some few days ago in our tafsir class. The name Allah is very unique, even in the Arabic language. Even within Arabic grammar, the word Allah is not a name that you can what? You can twist and turn, like the word God in the English language. If it is a capital G, they say it is God Almighty. If it is a small g, it means the small gods. If you add s to it, it means plural gods. If you add dess, it is a female god, goddess. If you suffix it, or suffix it with father, it becomes godfather, godmother, godson. No, there's nothing like that. It's not like this. It doesn't work that way. That the word Allah is not manipulated. And then throughout history, nobody has ever had that name. Nobody has ever that name. But then, for example, some attributes of Allah, like the name Rabb, sometimes is given to what? To human being. For example, Rabbul Bayt, the owner of the house. So in the story of Ashabul Fil, where the people came with elephants to come and destroy the Kaaba, Abdul Muttalib told Abraha, Ammal Ibl fa'ana Rabbuha. But for the camels, I am the Lord of the camels, meaning I'm the owner of the camels. Wa anna lil bayti rabban. And the house, Kaaba, also has what? Has a Lord. So the word Rabb can be used for human beings, but then it is what? It is used as an adjective to qualify another thing. So Rabbul Bayt, the owner, the Lord of the house. Or Rabbus Sayyara, the owner of what? Of the car. But when you use Rabb with the Almighty Allah, it means the cherisher, the sustainer of the universe. So sometimes you have Rabb like that. Even the Almighty Allah names the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam Ra'ufur Rahim in the Quran, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Ra'uf, is very soft. Ar-Rahim is very what? Is very merciful. And these two names, Ra'uf, Rahim, are what? Are attributes of the Almighty Allah. But the Almighty Allah gives it to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam within the concept or the context of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being what? A human being. But the name Allah is for Allah and Allah alone. Nobody. If you want to name your child Allah, and let's see what is going to happen. You dare not. You can. You dare not. Just write. You dare not. You say Abdullah. Ahad. The Almighty Allah didn't say Wahid. Qul huwa Allahu Wahid. He didn't say that. Because if you say Wahid, it means there is Ithnain. There is Thalatha. There is Arba. If you say Wahid, means one. It means there is going to be number two. But when he says Ahad, it means the only one. There is deeper language here when Almighty Allah is speaking, for you to understand that He is the one and only. So when He named Himself Allah, and He is the only one who has that name, He gave it that quality of Ahad. And the word Ahad is mentioned only one time in the whole Quran, only here. For you to understand, it's only Allah who has that name. It's mentioned only once in the Quran. The word Ahad is mentioned once in the Quran and in this surah to tell you that Allah is one and only. So even within, speaking about His Tawheed, He's giving all this message that He's the one and only. Nobody deserves to worship except Him. And even in the language, He's even expressing this to you. That if you check the Quran from cover to cover, the word Ahad appears only once. And it's only for Allah. And that's it. And Qul huwa Allahu Ahad, Allah in this verse is explaining to us that He is the one and only in His attributes and in His actions. Nobody joins Him in the actions that He does. فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. He does whatever He wants. لَا يُسْأَلْ عَمَّا يَفْعَلْ وَهُمْ يُسْأَلُونَ. He is never questioned based on what He does, and He is going to question us. If the Almighty Allah grants someone success, or someone some mercy, or someone some ni'mah, and then you don't understand, please, tomorrow morning, go to Woodland and 65th. There's a police department there. And then ask, you are looking for the officer in charge. And then the officer comes out and he asks you, what do you want? Tell him you have come to report Allah for giving this guy something that he has not given you. I know the police officer, he will look for a stick first, hit your head, and then return it back to factory settings before he sends you to what? To the psychiatric hospital, because you need help. So the Almighty Allah, nobody questions what he does. I just brought this fable and it's funny, but then sometimes that's what we do unconsciously. That the Almighty Allah has blessed someone, and then you are having envious tendencies towards that person. All that you are saying is that the Almighty Allah is not just, it's not fair. Why did he give it to him and then he didn't give it to you? That's what you are saying. And you're going to answer on the day of Qiyamah for that, unless you repent. So Allah is the one who does what he wants in his what? In his attributes. He created the heavens without anybody's help. When he created this masjid, the masjid has pillars holding it, true or false? Mm-hmm. If you look at the skies, are there any pillars holding the skies? There are no pillars holding the skies. And if you have any problem with the roofing of the masjid, if it rains and the water is dripping in, we're going to look for the engineers, right, to come and help us repair the roof of the masjid. Have you ever heard any communication that the skies have a problem? They are sending engineers there to go and repair the skies of the Almighty Allah. No. There are no cuts or cracks in the sky, as the Almighty Allah tells us in Surah Al-Mulk. There are no cuts in the skies. There are no openings in the skies that human beings need to contribute, roofing sheets and and then blocks and then materials and then go and help the Almighty Allah to repair his sky. No, he does whatever he wants. He goes around to do whatever he wants. So that is why he called himself Ahad, the one and only. Allahu Samad.
Allahu Samad.
As-Samad. And the word As-Samad again here is mentioned only once in the Quran. Only once in the Quran, and in this surah, and that's it. As-Samad, they said, Alladhi yusmadu ilayhi fil hajat. The one that we incline towards anytime we have what? We have issues that we need resolved. Ad-Dahhak narrates this from Imam Ibn Abbas, that As-Samad, he is the one that anytime we are in trouble, we call him. I remember very well, during the 2020, coronavirus lockdown, the then president said, let's fast 3 days fasting to ask God to what? To alleviate the problem. I remember the communique was made. And even back home in Ghana, the president said, let's all fast. One virus shuts down the whole world. And what happened? All of us, we all went back to Allah. Because with all our military might, we couldn't stop the virus. With all our economic might, we couldn't stop the virus. With all our medical, advancement and all that, the world has never been advanced to this proportion before in the history of the world. And Almighty Allah sent one virus. It shut the whole world down. I remember I came in early March, around 5th or 6th March. I spent about 2-3 days in New York, and I came to Philly, spent about 4 days in Philly, and I went back to New York. I was supposed to go to Washington for a conference. And then there was the stay-home order, and that's it. I stayed. The house that I was in New York, it was a 3-bedroom apartment, and the guys were almost all first respondents. So in the morning, I already heard, Sheikh, we are going. They are gone. I remained in the house all alone. And then in the evening, I hear the doors, hey, Sheikh, we are back. They come in, the first thing they do is they take out their gloves, and they go and wash their hands. And then there is, kenkeleba boiling, and then everybody is drinking all kinds of concoctions because things are not working. People are mixing things, lemon and lime and, ginger and, habatu sauda, and then everybody is mixing everything to drink. And then I remember sometimes I go out of the room just to walk in the streets of Bronx, and it's like a cemetery. If you're going to enter the elevator and someone is in there, you go out. It's now one to one. The whole world went back to the Almighty Allah. All of us, with our atheists, with our believers, the disbelievers, the sinful ones, all of us repented. Everybody went back to the Almighty Allah. Allahu Samad. He is the eternal. He is Ad-Da'imul Baqi. He is the one and only everlasting. Alladhi yusmadu ilayhi fi nawazil wal hawa'ij. He is the one that we all return to in terms of calamities, in terms of problems. Look at the recent, happenings in Syria. With all the earthquakes, when the people go to rescue people, they pull out a live body and you hear what? Allahu Akbar. Yes. Who caused the earthquake? It's Allah. And who allowed the people to survive? It's Allah. And who allowed the respondents to be able to pull them out of the rubble? Is who? It's Allah. So definitely we will all say what? Allahu Akbar. Whether you like it or not. He is the one and only, the eternal, the one that you're going to call, the one that you're going to go back to, the one that whatever happens, you go back to him. No matter how brave you are and no matter how strong you are, anytime you are sick, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, La ilaha illallah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. True of us. True. Even the atheists, when something happens, car accident, anything, he says, oh my God. He will say it. Your natural disposition will force you to say it. By the time you realize, you say, oh my God. You say there's no God. You don't believe in God. But things happen and then your natural disposition will force you to mention the name of Allah. There is, a narration that one day Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was traveling and he met a guy who was calling his idol, Ya Sanamu Ishfini, O idol, give me health. Ya Sanamu It'imni, O idol, give me food. And then his tongue made a mistake. Instead of saying Ya Sanamu, he said Ya Samadu. And Almighty Allah said, Labbaika ya Abdi, yes, my servant. And Musa was like, Ya Allah, this guy, he was only calling his idol. And then he only made a mistake calling your name. Why did you answer him? And Allah said, Ya Musa, Istaghatha bis sanam falam yujibuhu sanam. He sought help from the idol and the idol didn't help him. And then he comes to seek help from me and Allah, didn't help him. Then what's the difference between me and then the idol? So that is why the Almighty Allah is Ar-Rahmanur Rahim. Ar-Rahman in the dunya, He has given everybody. Even those who curse Allah are given. Those who say Allah doesn't exist, He gives them. Those who disobey Allah publicly, He gives them. He gives everybody. Now that the weather is nice, we're having bright sunlight. Is it only in the house of the Muslim and then the non-Muslims don't have it? All of us have it. When it rains, does it rain only in your house and then the non-Muslims don't get it? It rains in every house. When we all go out in the day to look for our sustenance, the Almighty Allah gives all of us. The Almighty Allah said, Ya ibn Adam, خلقتك لعبادتي فلا تلعب. وضممت لك رزقك فلا تتعب. إن أصيتني في عبادتي قدمت لك رزقك ولا أبالي. The Almighty Allah says, Ya ibn Adam, I created you for my worship. فلا تلعب. You didn't come to the dunya to come and play games. Worship me. وضممت لك رزقك فلا تتعب. And I guarantee for you your sustenance so that you will never what? You will never get tired. You will never tire. But understand one thing. Even if you don't hold your end of the bargain of worshiping me, Allah, I will still give it to you. But don't worry. I'm waiting for you in the akhirah. You will come.
Inna rabbaka labil mirsad.
Inna rabbaka labil mirsad. The Almighty Allah is very clear. Oh, son of Adam. He didn't say Muslim. He said, oh, son of Adam. I created you for you to worship me. You are not here to play games. And my end of the bargain is that I have guaranteed for you your what? Your sustenance and your rizq. If you worship me, Allah, I will give you your rizq. If you still don't worship me, I will still give you your rizq. But no, I'm waiting for you. You'll come. So Allah Samad is the one who what? Who we all look up to. In times of good, in times of bad, in times of prosperity, in times of what? In times of hard. We all look up to the Almighty Allah. And this surah is teaching us an adab with Almighty Allah. That as a Muslim, understand that the one who is going to wipe your tears is who? Is Allah. The one who is going to take away the pains is who? Is Allah. Ya sahib al-hammi, inna al-hamma munfarijun, abshir bi khairin, fa inna al-fahrij Allahu. اليأس أحيانا يقطع بصاحبه لا تيأسن فإن الصانع الله إذا بليت فثق به وارض به إن الذي يكشف البلوى هو الله الله يحدث بعد العسر ميسرة لا تجزع عنا فإن الصانع الله والله ما لك غير الله من أحد فحسبك الله في كل لك الله. In everything you have Allah. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope of getting the mercy of the Almighty Allah. Especially in this month of Ramadan that we are in. Wallahi, no matter how many sins you've committed before the month of Ramadan, have the positivity, be optimistic that in this month of Ramadan the Almighty Allah is going to forgive me. Be positive about that.
No,
be positive about it. Unless you've committed shirk, then istighfar is not going to clean that. You need to what? You need to have a total U-turn with Almighty Allah. It's like you're using the 95 south. Get an exit and do a U-turn and come and join the 95 north. Back to the Almighty Allah. That is with shirk. But with the other sins that we commit, the Almighty Allah's door is open for us all the time. لو أتيتني بقراب الأرض خطايا ثم لقيتني لا تشرك بي شيئا لقيتك بقرابها مغفرة. If you are to meet the Almighty Allah with what? The whole world full of sins, but you never associated any partners with the Almighty Allah, the Almighty Allah is going to what? Meet you with what? With an earth full of what? Forgiveness. If you come to the Almighty Allah walking, the Almighty Allah will run towards you. So seeking forgiveness from the Almighty Allah, especially in this month, is very, very important. There's a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ explained to us that a man was traveling in the wilderness. His food and his everything was on his what? On his mount, either a horse or a donkey. He got to a place where he was tired, so he fell asleep under a tree. When he woke up, his horse was nowhere to be found. He looked around for the horse. He didn't find the horse anywhere. So he came back and sat under the tree and he said, Allahumma, oh Allah, I've done what I've been able to do. I leave the rest to you. So he fell asleep. He woke up. When he opened his eyes, his mount was resting next to him. Out of happiness, he said, Allahumma anta abdi wa ana rabbuk. He said, Ya Allah, you are my servant and I'm your Lord. Out of happiness. He said, Ya Allah, you are my servant and I'm your Lord. Akhta'a min shiddat al-farh. He made a mistake out of what? Happiness. He said, Ya Allah, I've left everything to you. I've done my part. I've left the part to you. And then Almighty Allah fulfilled his bargain. And then he was like, Ya Allah, I'm your Lord and you are my servant. And the Prophet Muhammad said, you see how happy he is? The Almighty Allah is happier anytime a servant loses his way, but then he finds his way back to the Almighty Allah. So As-Samad, Allah As-Samad. The Almighty Allah is the one that we all look up to. Naam, Sheikh.
لم يلد ولم يولد.
Lam yalid, he didn't give birth. Walam yulad, nor was he giving birth to. This might sound very simple for a description, but it's very deep. Because anybody who is giving birth to has a source, has an origin. The Almighty Allah is beyond that description. And anybody who gives birth will be inherited. Because if you give birth, you're going to die, you're going to leave behind the kids. And they're going to inherit you. The Almighty Allah, munazzahun an hadha kulli. The Almighty Allah is what? Is clean from all this.
أَنَّا يَكُونُ لَهُ وَلَدٌ وَلَمْ تَكُنْ لَهُ صَاحِبَةٌ.
How will he give birth when he has no wife? And all these verses that we've been speaking about have a relationship between them. For example, when the Almighty Allah said Ahad, He is the one and only, He says He's as-Samad. He is the only one we all go back to. And then He comes and then He says Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He's still the only one who has not given birth and then He will not give birth. Giving birth is an act of, you have to go through the animal act of what? Of having sexual intercourse. And the Almighty Allah is beyond that. And not giving birth for human beings is also a sign of what? A sign of what? Of how I'm going to, I don't want to sound, a little bit harsh or disrespectful, because some people have not given birth or they are married for some time. It's an abnormality that as a human being you are married, you've not given birth. It's an abnormality. Not because it is your fault, but it's because the Almighty Allah who wills it. But for the Almighty Allah, not giving birth is what? It's a plus to the Almighty Allah. And for you, giving birth is a plus. But for the Almighty Allah, giving birth is an abnormality. So for you, giving birth is a plus, but giving birth with the Almighty Allah is an abnormality. For you, not giving birth is an abnormality, but for Allah, not giving birth is a plus. Today, the class is very hot. That the mic even wants to fall down. So, the Almighty Allah says in this verse that the Shaykh has read to us, that أَنَّا يَكُونُ لَهُ وَلَدٌ وَلَمْ تَكُنْ لَهُ صَاحِبًا. How is he going to give birth when he doesn't have a wife? When he has already said Ahad, he is the one and only. If he has a wife, then it means someone like him. In the same word, in the same vein. That is why in Greek mythology, you find out that the gods are promiscuous. The gods come and then they sleep with human beings, females, and then they give birth. So Zeus came down and then he slept with a woman and then they give birth to Hercules, who is half god, half man. The Almighty Allah is debunking all this Greek mythology. All this Asian pharaonic mythology of Osiris and Iris and all this Mesopotamian and then all these people over the years where they said God has given birth, God has a wife and all those stuff, these gods. So the Almighty Allah is letting us understand that all these gods that you attribute yourselves to, you worship them, I am the Almighty Allah, I'm above that, I'm beyond that. So, for example, when Christians say Jesus Christ is the Son of God, they are only copying from the Mesopotamians and then the ancient Greeks and the Asian, because they had already said it thousands of years before the Christians come to say that. So, lam yalid wa lam yulad. He didn't give birth, nor was he born. ولم يكن له
كفوا أحد.
نعم.
ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Now he explains, he summarizes everything. ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. And he has no partners. He has none like him. None. You see, all of us, we don't look alike. If I see you, I know this is Abdullah.
Yeah.
But then we have the same, we have eyes, we have nose, we are human beings. But then all the human beings on the surface of the earth, we don't look alike.
ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير.
There is nothing like him. Nobody, no being. That's what Almighty Allah is. Even in identical twins, twins who look alike, you find some difference. You find it whether you like it or not. There is something. How many of us know that Masri, Hussein here, is a twin? He is a twin. If you see the other guy, he is light skinned and this one is dark skinned. That's the only difference. But they look alike. They look exactly alike. Okay, fine. Even if they don't look, even if they look alike, that you cannot differentiate between them. When they go and have their thumbprints, it's going to be different. So the Almighty Allah, in these intricate details, He's just trying to let us know that He is one and only. There's nothing like Him. And nobody deserves to be worshipped except Him alone. And nobody has the right to have all these attributes except He and Him alone. Now I said we're going to explain why those, the reason why they said Qul huwa Allahu is what? Is 3 times, in the Quran. I almost forget, but let's go straight for it there. The scholars have had difference of opinion when it comes to the reason why they say Qul huwa Allahu is what? Is 1/3 of the Quran. The first one is that it is 1/3 of the Quran in terms of reward. So if you read it 3 times, you've read what? You've read the whole Quran in terms of reward. That's what some scholars say. Some scholars say is that it is equivalent to 1/3 of the Quran for someone who reads it but doesn't know any other surah except Qul huwa Allahu ahad. That's what some scholars say. Some scholars say it is 1/3 of the meanings of the Quran, because the Quran has 3 different meanings, or 3 different messages. The first message is that it is full of rules and regulations, al-ahkam, the whole Quran, and that it is full of information, al-akhbar, and then it is full of tawheed. So the Quran has tawheed in it, it has what? Information in it, and then it has what? It has rules in it. And Qul huwa Allahu brings tawheed. And tawheed is 1/3 of the message of the Quran, and the message of Qul huwa Allahu is full of tawheed. So Qul huwa Allahu is what? Is 1/3 of the Quran. And then the last one is the same as the first one, that reading it is what? Is reward, is like what? 1/3 of the Quran. But Allahu A'lam as to what it means that Qul huwa Allahu is 1/3 of the Quran. But we believe it. Whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, that's not our business. Our business is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Qul huwa Allahu is 1/3 of the Quran. Samina wa ata'na. That's it. Sometimes it's not about looking for the wisdom behind revelation or the message. It's about surrendering to the will of the Almighty Allah. That's number one. So anytime someone says, why did Almighty Allah say we should pray 5 times a day? It's because the Almighty Allah says we should pray 5 times a day. That's it. But scholars try as much as possible to find, some meanings, or Fajr is because it's morning, you are not going out to go and meet it, or stuff like that. It's not wrong and it's not haram, but then the number one thing is that the Almighty Allah says we should pray 5 times a day. I saw a video of one of my fathers and Sheikh from Nigeria, Sheikh Abdul Wahab. Someone asked the question that in Ramadan, when the women are in their menstruation, after Ramadan, they don't make up the salah, but they make up the days that they missed in fasting. Why is it so? He said the person should go and ask the Prophet. He said they should go wake the Prophet up in his grave and ask him why. That's just by the way. Because sometimes he is very straightforward. Sheikh Abdul Wahab of Kano, he is very straightforward. He doesn't take nonsense. So this question to him is like, it's nonsense. It's Allah who says when your menses, don't fast. After Ramadan, make up the days that you miss in fasting. Don't make up the prayers. Why do you want to know why? Just do it. That is his stance on that. But just by the way, that sometimes it's not everything that we get to know the wisdom behind it. Because if you get to know the wisdom behind everything, then we become perfect beings. And then our need for the Almighty Allah is no longer there. So there are some things that are hidden. Some things, they are mystery for us. That will always send us back to the Almighty Allah. Because there are some things that your logic cannot explain them. Your logic cannot explain them. So that God factor still remains. That there is Allah. There are things beyond the mind of the human being. There are things beyond the understanding of the human being. That, for example, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ goes to the skies, goes to the heaven, go and take salah, come down in his body and then his soul at the same time combined. How will you understand this? Leave it there. It happened. That's it. You're free. So there are some things that, for us Muslims, you don't ask the questions. There are some questions you don't ask. You don't ask because there are no answers for it. And we believe in that. For example, the Almighty Allah says in the Quran, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. The Almighty Allah is what? He is balanced on his what? On his throne. How did he balance? Did he sit? Is he standing? Is he sleeping? You don't. It's none of your business. If we say something is balanced, you understand what balance means. You understand? When you say something is balanced, it's balanced. You understand what it means, and that's it. You forget about how is it and where is it. No. You don't ask those questions.
الاستواء معلوم.
الاستواء معلوم والكيف مجهول والسؤال عنه بدعة وإيمان به واجب.
نعم.
الاستواء معلوم. For something to balance, we all know that this is balanced. This table is balanced. Is it balanced or is not balanced? It's balanced, we know. This iPad is balanced. It's balanced, we know. Al-istiwa ma'alum. Wal-kayf majhul. How is the Almighty Allah balanced on his throne? We don't know. Wal-imanu bihi wajib. Believing that the Almighty Allah is balanced on his throne is wajib, is compulsory. وَالسُّعَالُ عَنْهُ بِدْعَةٌ. Asking about it is bid'ah, because the Sahaba didn't ask the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Almighty Allah said, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, the Sahaba understood that he is balanced, and that's it. Because someone came to Imam Malik to ask him, Ar-Rahman al-arsh istawa, what does it mean? And Imam Malik said this statement, Al-istiwa ma'alum. When we say something is balanced, we all know what balance means. Wal-kayf majhul. But how did Almighty Allah balance? We don't know. Wal-imanu bihi wajib. Believing that Allah is balanced on the throne is wajib. Was-su'alu anhu bid'ah. Asking this question itself is bid'ah. He told the guys, kick him out of the masjid before he brings us further problem. That's what Imam Malik did. He said, ukhrujuhu min al-masjid. Kick him out, because before he brings further problems for us. So there are some things that the essence of the Almighty Allah, you can't understand it. You can't comprehend it. That is how we are programmed. So take it like that. He is Allah, Al-Samad, Al-Ahad. He is the one and only, the eternal, the forever. He doesn't give birth. He is never given birth to, and there's nothing like him. Take this description of the Almighty Allah and you're free. As I said the last time, if anybody comes and they say he's God, or if someone comes and the people say he's God, use Qul Huwallahu Ahad to measure him. That's it. If he fits Qul Huwallahu, then he's Allah. He's God. You know very well. None. Nobody is going to fit this criteria of Qul Huwallahu. Not even one of what? Of the criteria. Not even one. Not even a quarter of it. You will never be able to meet it, because it is the sole description of the Almighty Allah, and it is the Almighty Allah who is describing himself. It is not the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam describing Allah. It is Allah himself who is describing himself. And then you know himself, you know yourself better than you. How much more he about himself. So that is why he gave a description tailor fit for him and him alone. You're not going to share in any of that. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum. We'll take some questions and then we call it a day. Now,